Hi everyone, welcome to Weekly WED. Weekly WED from Business School of AI is by students of Sudha from Stanford Business School of AI, and we come here to continually learn. It's an international speaker series hosted here at Business School of AI, where we have speakers from all over the world coming here to teach us about the latest and the greatest in AI, AV, and IoT. Weekly Vet is a community that is growing stronger and stronger with students of Sudha here, and you're all welcome to join Weekly Vet. Before we begin, I would like to say that this meeting is live streamed and recorded. So if you do not want to be live streamed or recorded, please turn off your camera. And if you do not want your voice to be heard, you can always chat uh, in the chat box, and I will field the question. I'm your host, Yashaswini Vishwanath. I'm an AI researcher from Bangalore, India. And today we have a very special speaker here, Smrithi Suresh. And Smrithi, I would like to give your intro, and here we go. Smrithi Suresh is a current senior at UC San Diego, majoring in nanoengineering. She has been an undergraduate researcher at labs at UCSD, Scripps, and Stanford, with background in on-body device fabrication and neuroscience. As a part-time, she runs engineering workshops for middle school students, hopefully encouraging them to pursue STEM fields. Outside of academics, Smriti runs a dance group called Fuchsia Dance, which seeks to tell contemporary stories with Indian classical dance. Their group will be performing in New York for the renowned Erasing Borders Festival this month. She hopes to pursue a PhD under her undergraduate studies. Welcome, Smriti. It's a privilege to host you here. And before we begin the session, I just want to share the MailChimp for the Agent AI workshop that we have, Agent AI course that we have next month. So I just wanted to share the MailChimp here. I will just share my screen. Or okay. Yes, I have shared the MailChimp link here. Please have a look at it and subscribe to it if Agent AI is something that is of interest to you. I strongly suggest that you go ahead and do it because Agent AI is the future. Agents are going to take over the world all in the coming days. By take over the world, I mean they're going to be in vogue in the enterprise scenarios. Smriti, back to you and back to nanoengineering. Let's begin.
Thank you so much, Yash, for that introduction. And thank you, Sudha, for having me here. I'm really grateful to be a part of this meeting presenting. It's an honor. So I hope to give a good presentation to you guys. I know you guys are focused more on AI. Nanoengineering is an upcoming technology and science that will permeate over the next coming decades because of its unique properties. And hopefully, I know for a fact AI will be incorporated into nanoengineering. So I just want to talk a bit about nanoengineering and my background, as well as what I can see the future of nanoengineering being. So this is a brief intro to nanoengineering. So before I begin, a brief agenda. I'll go over what is nanoengineering for people that are not familiar with the topic at all. Why is it important? Nanoengineering that we see in nature and how we can be inspired by nature and science. One specific scenario with gold nanoparticles, and then I will talk about nanoengineering in machine learning. So a lot of people can relate to how it can be pertinent to them, as well as some up and coming companies and startups that are working in this field, if you wanted to look more into the field. So moving on. Okay. Before I begin, I wanted to preface by saying breakthroughs in nanoengineering present endless possibilities of how this technology can shape the future for science. So before I begin, what is nanoengineering? What is this new word that I'm saying? Maybe a lot of you have not heard of it. Nanoengineering is any engineering and science that deals with working on the nanoscale level. And to give you a perception of how small that really is, if you take the Earth and you imagine a golf ball compared to the size of the Earth, that is super duper small, right? Like imagine one golf ball in terms of the whole Earth. But if you now imagine that golf ball as the size of the Earth, 1 nanometer particle would be a golf ball compared to that size. So basically, it's 10 to the power 14 times smaller than the size of the Earth, which is super duper small. So if you imagine like just part of your hair, that's 100 micrometers. If you go even 10 times smaller, that you'll get the size of a red blood cell. If you go 10 times smaller than that, you get bacteria. 10 times smaller than that, you get the SARS-CoV virus. And then 10 times smaller than that, you get an antibody. And then 10 times smaller than that is where you're at 1 nanometer. So if you imagine a really, really small level, there's so many things around us that you can't even see, like a whole world down there. And we're only just beginning to find what these things are because of the new technologies that we have. And it's a really interesting field because no one has really thought about this or looked into this more. And it's just coming up in science. So we're at like the turning point. So why is nanomaterials important? Why are they significant to us now? So at the nanoscale level, materials and systems exhibit very novel and unique properties, including improved physical, chemical, and biological phenomena and processes because of their size. So the physics at a nanoscale level is completely different than general physics that you learn in your classes or in college. So that's what we really study in nanoengineering and how we can leverage those properties to do better science or to make strides in technology. But research has only just begun and there's so much more to learn, which is why more researchers need to come and more researchers need to know about this field. So why is nanoengineering only coming up now? Right now, we have the tools to observe and manipulate materials at the nanoscale and even atomic level using tools such as electron and scanning probe microscopy. So this first photo is a technology called atomic force microscopy, and where it's like a very, very small tip will run across a material surface and it can atom by atom tell us the properties of that material. So if you have like a polycrystalline, it will be able to tell you exactly where all the crystalline structures are, what direction they're facing. And those are really important if we were to discover new materials or create stronger and more more flexible materials that can be used in tons of different applications. And there's new microscopes called SEM and TEM, which can show like really close-up images. As you can see, this is a pollen grain under the two different microscopes, and you can really penetrate, not only just see the surface of the pollen, but also penetrate into the surface of the pollen using these new microscopes, which are really exciting for us. Nanoengineering is at the heart of technological innovation, especially in fields like microelectronics, where smaller and more efficient devices are critical for progress. So making these devices, as devices get smaller, so do the electronics in those devices. And as they get smaller, we also need them to get more efficient. We can't just have them deteriorate as they get smaller. So new lithography processes, such as using photoresist to make these like different structures in these microelectronics, is what we learn in classes in nanoengineering at UCSD. The third reason is the discovery of new nanomaterials like graphene and nanowires, along with advances in computer simulations, has accelerated our understanding and control of nanoscopic phenomena like quantum effects and mechanical properties, which are crucial for developing future technologies. So below this, I have a single-walled carbon nanotube, which is just a layer of graphene, like if you imagine these carbon atoms that are hexagonal in shape. It's just a layer of that, one layer of atoms, and they're wrapped around. And these are actually used in so many different types of medicines right now, where they can penetrate into the body and be used as drug carriers or drug deliverers, because they are small and easy to penetrate in a lot of different areas in your body. And this is a chemical reaction simulation that is being developed right now on computer simulations, which are critical to us. So scientists don't even need to be in the lab anymore and take data points. Like if they can just run it through these simulations, imagine how much faster science would progress. So those are the things that nanoengineering research is looking at right now. It's still a very new field, so people are just starting to come and realize that there are so many different possibilities by learning these techniques and learning about nanoengineering. So I wanted to go into 3 different examples of nanoengineering that we find in nature and how we can be inspired by nature and use that in science. So the first example is the butterfly's wings. So have you ever looked at a butterfly and wondered how their wings can be so many different colors at one time? For example, like they don't have any pigment in their wings. So how are they emitting these beautiful iridescent colors? And it's actually due to nanoscale ridges in their wings that manipulate light. So based on where you look, the butterfly's wings will look slightly different colors. And that's due to Bragg's law, which is a very important law in nanoengineering, which tells us like if a light is coming from this way, which way will it go out? And engineers have used this technique in Bragg's law to create a lot of materials without pigments, which are useful in displays and sensors and anti-counterfeiting technologies. So that's just one example of how we can be inspired by nature. Another really good example is gecko feet. So there's a lot of forces that are acting on gecko's feet at the nanoscale level. And so at the base of the gecko feet, they have these nanoscale hairs that have these little like sponges on them. And inside those hairs, they have more little hairs sticking out. So basically, it's such a small surface that they leverage the van der Waals force to adhere and release as they desire. So nanoengineering has been trying to harness these forces to create adhesives with strong bonding capabilities, which can be useful in robotics and biomedical devices. So that's just one application. And it's really cool how the geckos are just able to place their foot on and come back off. And that's due to just a weak attraction between oppositely charged molecules. One third example of nanoengineering in nature is something called magnetobacteria. So magnetobacteria align with magnetic nanoparticles within their bodies to navigate using Earth's magnetic field. So this natural phenomena illustrates how nanoscale manipulation of materials can be used to develop nanomaterials for data storage or sensing. So it's really cool that animals have actually evolved to use nanoscience within their daily lives to survive and live. And we're only just beginning to learn from these animals and to leverage those properties in science and technology now. So I want to talk about one example of where nanoengineering has really taken off, and that's with gold. So when you imagine gold, you think of these like big 24 karat bricks of gold that are usually yellow iridescent color. But what's really interesting about gold is when you get to a nanoscale level, when you cut down that gold so small that it gets to a nanoscale level, the gold glows red, which is not what you would expect. Usually you'd expect as you cut something down, even though the size is getting smaller, the properties stay the same. But actually with gold, it has this unique property where it becomes a different color due to the absorbed wavelength of these nanoparticles. So if you see here on the left, the size of the gold nanoparticle can actually change the color of what it's emitting. And this is really useful information, as I will go into in the next slide, but we take control of these properties and we can use them for medicine and other things, which I'll talk about in a bit. This here is a Lycurgus cup from ancient Rome. So when light is shined in front of the cup is green. But when you take the light in the back, the cup turns red. So why does this happen? This effect comes from the addition of gold and silver nanoparticles dispersed in the glass. So actually, even in ancient times, people were using nanoparticles and nanoscience, whether they knew it or not. But when you take control of these properties and you go to a really small level, what you would think are just normal properties completely changes. And that's why so much research is needed in this field, because we have no clue what would happen if we go really small and how that affects science as a whole. So I'm going to talk about gold a little bit more in depth and how it's being used in medical research right now. So gold can be turned into many different shapes and sizes. If you see here, we can make gold nanorods, gold nano cages, and gold nanoclusters. And what we want to do is we want to give these to a patient, inject them into a patient that has cancer and an active tumor. And what this gold will do is it'll circulate in your body. And as you can see, different shapes and sizes even of these gold nanoparticles can give a rise to different wavelengths and different colors that we see within the solution. So for example, this 540 wavelength, this 50 nanometer gold particle will give rise to like a red color. But if we go a little further down the scale at 125 nanometers, it'll give rise to like a light blue color. So why is this important? Why do we care that these are showing a bunch of different colors? Well, one reason is we actually use gold nanoparticles for tumor ablation. So what happens is when you shine the specific wavelength, so say we're using 125 nanometer gold particles within this patient, when you shine a wavelength of around 600, 610, that gold particle has electrons outside its surface that all oscillate together. So they're not oscillating separately, they're not doing their own thing. They begin oscillating at the same time, and that actually gives rise to heat. And this heat, if given long enough, can basically ablate all the cells near it. So say we have these gold nanoparticles that have come onto this tumor. What we want to do is we just want to shine a 600 nanometer wavelength light, and by itself, the gold will begin heating up and just ablate all the tumor cells around it. So that's one way that we actually have been using gold nanoparticles in our daily lives, or will be. Another example of how nanoengineering has been used is, we all know the COVID virus and the what like how it permeated. And so um we developed a solution using nanoengineering products, essentially, by the way that they are engineered and packaged into these lysosomes. So basically, the solution that they came up with is proteins will be around the outside and the drug delivery is within the inside. So we basically leverage the hydrophobic effect to deliver the drug for the COVID virus. And that was also a nano-engineered technique. Moving on. How can we use nanoengineering and machine learning? I know a lot of you have a background in AI and machine learning. So one example is quantum computing. If you've never seen this image, it's an image of a quantum computer. And these have the potential to revolutionize machine learning, because the computational power of these quantum computers goes so far beyond our traditional computers that we can't even imagine their power. So quantum dots and other nanomaterials are critical components of making quantum computers, and nanoengineering allows the precise control of these materials to develop qubits, which are the foundation of quantum computers. So there is a need for developing engineering techniques to build these computers, which then have the power to revolutionize machine learning and AI for so much of our future. The next is modeling of quantum phenomena. So understanding behavior of materials at a nanoscale requires complex simulations of quantum phenomena, which are computationally expensive because it'll usually take a long time. Your computer may not have, the memory to store all this data and keep running the simulation. So machine learning models are currently being used to replace or enhance traditional simulation methods. By learning the underlying patterns in these molecular interactions, they can predict outcomes of nanoscale interactions much, much faster, and basically further science much quicker. So these are some nano companies that are currently starting up. The first one is Nanospectra Biosciences, and they're a medical device company that works with gold nanoparticles and tumor ablation. And so this is like a technique that's actually being used for cancer patients currently. Other one is Nanome, which is a virtual reality software for molecular modeling, collaborative drug design, and 3D visualization of molecular structures. And actually, I met this person and they were able to come speak at our school. He was an alumni of UCSD Nanoengineering, and we had a really great conversation with him about how nanoengineering can present so many opportunities for startups and different areas that haven't really been explored yet. And the third one is Urbix, which produces natural battery-grade graphite for use in electric vehicles and battery storage systems. So we're learning now that nanoengineering can be used in so many different areas, including bioengineering, including developing batteries and also energy, as well as machine learning and AI. So there's really a large platform and there needs to be a lot more research done. So that was much shorter than I expected, but I'm more than happy to go into any of the slides if you guys have any questions. I hope you learned something new. This was a very brief overview of nanoengineering, but more than happy to talk in detail. And if you want, this is a QR code for my LinkedIn, if you want to contact me and ask any more questions. Thank you.
Smriti, it was wonderful. And thank you for coming here and sharing all this information. I think the nano engineering part that you taught us today is something that we will remember for many years to come. And when somebody tells about the latest in nanotechnology, we will know, yes, we learned it from Smrithi Suresh at Weekly Ved. Now I open the floor for questions. Please chat your questions, or you can ask your questions by unmuting. And yes, just 1 second. Smriti, I think you can stop the share. Okay.
Could you tell us more about your thoughts on just like the future of this and artificial intelligence just joining forces in a way, like at least from your observations?
Yeah, that's a great question. So I briefly mentioned like the two places where I feel nanoengineering could be nanoengineering and machine learning could come together. Um, but that's not like a future that's too far off. I personally have a mentor that works in the nanoengineering department, but he does computational modeling on our supercomputers that we have at UCSD. So he uses these really big computers with a lot of data, and they do like chemical modeling and reactions. And the reason is there is a very large need right now to model chemical reactions that we have never thought about or never tried. But the reason we haven't tried is we just don't have the technology that can take that level of information and data and really model that well. And like the permeation of AI in our day-to-day now is what's really coming into that research. So he works with machine learning and AI, and uses them to model these computer simulations and reactions. So that's just one thing I can think of. My background is not in machine learning, so I'm not familiar with any other areas of research. But I'm sure that there will be a lot of intersection in the future as computers and does with a lot of different fields already.
Thanks.
Yeah. Ananya has a question. Do you see any nanotechnology usage in cancer diagnosis?
That is a good question. As far as I know, currently, nanotechnology and nanoengineering are used as drug carriers, drug deliverers. In terms of actual diagnosis, I'm not very sure yet. I'm sure there is research being done. I don't know of a specific person that does cancer diagnosis. But yeah, I think it will come up. And yeah, right now it's mostly drug delivery. How can we package these drugs in the most efficient way, get them to the exact tumor that we want? And when they're there, how can they kill the tumor cells that we need, not the healthy cells? So that's what's really being researched right now. But in terms of cancer diagnosis, I want to say I'm not sure yet.
Yes. And we have one important question. How does Smriti balance studies, dance, and internship?
I'm still working on it. I am definitely not one person that can do everything at once. I tend to work in periods where I do this and then focus on this and this. But it's a lot of hard work. I love dancing. I love what I do while I'm studying, but dancing is my outlet from all the academics and all the research and things like that. So it's important that I have both my career and my passion in my life. And still working on keeping it all together. Yeah, it's just it's a lot of hard work.
And uh, so Ananya is telling, can you imagine nano computer vision for nano auto detection?
I'm not really familiar with computer vision or auto detection, so maybe I would need a little more insight on that. What I do know is like one of the companies I mentioned, Nano, that uses virtual reality to basically make a collaborative space where different people can actually like move molecules together and build a drug that they had never seen before, or they can like expand the drug and like start walking around and they'll see the drug like almost like as if it was right in front of you. And you can be like, what if we took this out and put this in? Um, that's what I know about like vision, but I don't know if this is the right thing, but I mean, can you give me more insight on what computer vision and auto detection is?
Yes. So basically, computer vision is where um, the robot or any car, it sees what is in front of it, and auto detection is coming to automobiles where it can say it's a person, uh, and it should not hit them, so it goes on like that.
I'm not really sure right now. I don't know how nano would come into this currently. Um, but it would be cool to see something like that, I think. Yeah.
Yes. uh,
Any other questions?
yes. Okay, I have a few questions. What are the long-term environmental and biological risks associated with the use of nanoparticles, especially in medicine and consumer products?
That is a great question, and that's something that as a nano engineer myself, I wish we talked about more. Because sustainability is really important to the new generation. And nano engineering right now, because it's so new, isn't really thinking about the sustainability aspect of whatever they're creating or whatever they're making. So for example, the gold nanoparticles that I mentioned in our in the presentation, those are supposedly very non-toxic to the body. They can, because they're so small, they can easily be washed out like through your pee or like your liver system. So they don't really have any long-lasting effects. Of course, this is just from preliminary research, and more more research obviously has to be done. But on the other hand, there are a lot of nanoengineering technologies that are environmentally degrading to a lot of different areas. I mean, any science will require the use of a lot of materials and a lot of chemicals that may be toxic to our environment. So there's still a lot of need for not only nanoengineering, but how nanoengineering can also be sustainable for us. Also, like current nanoengineering requires ironically, the use of very, very large engineering devices to make these very, very small creations. So in terms of how accessible nanoengineering is, I would say it's not very accessible right now. Hopefully it will be, but in terms of sustainability and accessibility, there's still a long ways to go here.
What do you think are the key barriers for developing energy efficient and scalable manufacturing processes to create these nanotechnologies, to create these atoms, and to create them?
What are the key barriers that are? I think I honestly believe that nanoengineering can only be accessible currently to researchers and universities that have the money to buy the tools that are used to develop these products. I think that's like the biggest thing right now is nanoengineering can only be done where the tools are available. And unfortunately, the tools actually cost millions of dollars, and not everyone just has $1 million to spend on these tools to make these devices. So I think that's the largest barrier right now. Yeah, I think that would be the largest one. If there was anything else, I would say there's just not a good understanding of nanoengineering. There's not a lot of education on it. I mean, it's an up and coming science. So the larger barriers, like people just don't know about it. People haven't not studied it. They haven't gone into the research. So I would say the second one to that is just the education of nanoengineering and nanotechnology. Question is, US is leading in innovation currently. What other countries are actively leading in nano innovation? Some really prominent countries aside from the US are Singapore, China, Korea, and Japan, I would say, are really big with nanotechnology. I might have missed a few, but I think those are the big ones that are really working on this technology actively. Any other questions?
Sorry, I was on mute. I have a bunch of questions and I would like to field them. Regarding nano engineering and drug delivery systems.
Mm-hmm.
So, is there some connection between them? Can you bridge that? And can you tell if there is something that's targeting certain cells or tissues and trying to off target the effects and toxicity?
Yeah. So in terms of drug delivery, there is a lot of development right now as to how to properly package a drug and deliver it to the site. And number two, how can we also get rid of the drug excreted from our system? So the first methods that have been developed with the packaging of drugs is putting it in these phospholipid bilayers. And so this is how the COVID virus, the COVID solution was created, but it's basically the drug is packaged in these phospholipid bilayers. And because the drug is hydrophobic and the top of the phospholipid bilayer is also hydrophobic, it's able to like properly go through the system without just dissolving immediately. So that's like one way we've used like to target viruses and other things like that. But in terms of like actually getting to a tumor site, one way is the gold nanoparticles. Another way is the single-walled carbon nanotubes. You can actually put drugs in there. And by changing like the length and the shape of these nanoparticles, we can either make them easy to release from our system or harder to release from our system. And sometimes we want the drug to stay in there for longer. So we make the carbon nanotube really, really skinny and long. So it's harder to excrete from our kidneys. So like changing the shapes, the sizes, the materials, they all play a large role in how this drug is carried throughout our system. And there's a lot of different things that the drug has to tackle, like I don't know, antibodies or things that are trying to just get rid of this foreign thing in the system, but sometimes it needs it. So yeah, a lot of like hundreds of different methods of how they've come up with targeting cancer and targeting drug specific targeting is happening right now.
Yeah, my next question is some way related to that. Um, how can we develop nanoscale devices that are both biocompatible and capable of long-term functionality inside the human body?
Mm, that is a good
Particularly
question. Yeah.
for neural interfaces or implantable sensors. We have seen these um, something that's so innovative where they implant something in the brain, a sensor in the brain, and it augments the brain. And we have heard these things. So can you tell if nanoscale devices do something like that?
Yeah, implantables are a huge component of nanoengineering. Like one section of nanoengineering itself is the intersection between like these devices that are often implanted into the body because they have to be safe for the human and also be effective. Um, and nanoengineering is used in developing biocompatible materials for that. Like if you want to put a patch on the brain, there's a few companies that are doing this already, that like if they want to like stimulate a certain region of the brain that has had a loss of function, they can actually just put a patch on the brain, but that patch needs to be safe to put on the brain. And it's a nano-engineered material that like they actually develop for that. So I'm not really familiar about what the material is, but in terms of like how pertinent nanoengineering is there, it's very, very important in terms of developing biocompatible materials.
Pretty. Um, my brain is all fired up now, knowing that somebody can put a patch on it
Yeah,
and,
yeah.
uh, augment it. But on a serious note, are there any social good use cases wherein this patching of the brain, it helps people or it makes a difference to the patients? Is there some scenarios that it caters to?
Um, Unfortunately, I wish I knew more about this topic because it is so, so interesting and so useful. The only thing I can guess, I'm hypothesizing right now just to preface, but say like people that have seizures or even people with um memory loss in a certain region or Alzheimer's or something like that, and they need like some electrical stimulation, I would say that's where I see the patch working. I wish I could find the name of the patch that I'm talking about. Um, because it
That'll
is
be very
really,
wonderful.
yeah,
Um, I think that'll be the main key takeaway for us from here.
yeah. But it is really cool what they are doing.
Yeah, you can always share it with us after your talk, and we will share it with everybody.
Definitely, definitely. Yeah, I'm
And
not really, I'll try to find the patch that's like being put on the brain right now. But there's also like a lot of on-body patches that are just like here. So usually like if you want to do glucose monitoring, you have to take like a blood sample. But actually like even in my previous lab, I developed devices called microneedles that just like go into the tip of your skin. They like small needles that just go like at the edge of your skin to a part called the interstitial fluid that has key biomarkers that we can determine, like if this person is low on sugar, or they need an injection, or so many different biomarkers in the interstitial fluid. I know like another research group is developing a patch with ultrasound technology. And so the patch can tell you if there's any problems with your heart just by the way your blood is flowing. So just imagine like the potential for all these like on-body patches, on-body devices. It's changing the way humans can take care of their health and actively monitor their health, which will definitely be the future of healthcare.
And to close on this particular topic of biology and nanoengineering, I want to ask you this question. What are the ethical and societal implications of advanced nanotechnologies, especially in the areas like human enhancement, the privacy and security,
Mm.
and how should these be addressed by researchers and policymakers?
To be completely frank with you, not a lot of thought has gone into that aspect of it, just because nanoengineering hasn't gotten to every consumer yet. Like I can't go out and buy like a nanoengineered device right now. It's still in the research phase. So thoughts on that are fairly limited. But there's definitely some ethical concerns in terms of research that we do. For example, like some researchers, they make organoids on plates, right? So they take a cell from a human, they reverse engineer it to be like a normal stem cell, and then say if they want to make like I don't know, like a muscle cell or something like that, they can just grow it on a plate. So that's one ethical concern. Like, is this thing on a plate right now, is that considered living, or is that considered non-living, right? Because you're taking a cell, but it's growing on this plate. And so like the way we treat that needs policymakers to say like, this is living, this is non-living, this is how you deal with this type of stuff. But there's not that many policymakers that are thinking about that. In terms of accessibility, nanoengineering is quite inaccessible still. And like, so I would say there's a lot of need for researchers and even myself to continue thinking about the accessibility, the inclusivity, and just the, you know, how can we make this more sustainable and accessible to everyone? Did I answer your question, Yash?
Yes, yes. And there's a piece of information that Adam has put here. IEEE has a strong nano group. It's called SFBAYNANO. It's their local chapter in Silicon Valley. Their classes and even community colleges. So thanks, Adam, for that. And I have a few more questions here, but I will move away from the bio part and move into solar cells. You talked about light absorption and energy and all that. So, is there um, anything that's possible to improve the efficiency of solar cells in terms of light absorption, charge separation, and energy conservation?
Absolutely. And that's what a major part of the nanoengineering department is doing. So there's these a company that I mentioned in the presentation is using graphene to conduct electricity much more efficient for these cars and devices that need a lot of energy. That's one aspect of it. So like battery, electric cars, these are all new applications that need a large amount of more energy and ideally more natural and sustainable energy, which is where I feel nanoengineering can impact a lot. And these are what mainly our nanoengineering research groups do at UCSD. A lot of them focus on energy storage and energy consumption and ways to implement nanoengineering into our traditional batteries.
Yeah, I will ask you one last question, and that is, how can we develop nanoscale systems that's capable of autonomous sensing, decision making, actuation for application like robotics, healthcare, and environmental monitoring? That's totally futuristic, I have to say.
Autonomous monitoring. When you say that, like one idea comes up. I'm not sure if it's been done or not, but I used to, as I was saying, I used to make these on-body devices that are detecting chemicals in the interstitial fluid and basically can tell you and when your glucose levels are low, your ketone levels are low, so many other biomarkers. But it would be really, really cool if the device could not only detect, but also inject when like say glucose levels are low. So like a person would be completely hands off and the device is doing everything you need it to by itself. Obviously that has to be programmed and implemented, but the device itself can do that. So right now the microneedles is what I was working on. That device has the ability to not only detect, but also to deploy a certain amount of drug into your system. And it would be really cool if we could combine those two things together with software engineering or machine learning to develop like a completely hands-off system that can take care of its own, that can take care of your body on its own.
Smriti, I have to say it was an enlightening session. And today, when I go to bed, I will think about the brain parts that you're telling and have a futuristic dream. I'm
Yeah.
so grateful to you to have come here and taught us these very important concepts about nanoengineering, which I have to say are difficult to get, learn, and gain access to this knowledge because it all stays in the universities. There is an iron wall, and behind the iron wall, all the knowledge stays. And thanks for opening a door and bringing us all the information for us. And before we close out, I want to show about the Agent AI course that we will be having next month. And also, I want to talk about the Sudha Live Agent AI program that we'll be having it on Friday. So, Agent AI, Sudha Live will be Friday. I will quickly show. So, just let me know if the Sudha Live is seen. This is Sudha Live. I have shared the link. So, please please go to that and follow that. And here is the Agent AI. Is this visible? Agent AI from Business School of AI, learn with us. So you can also subscribe to this. Both of the links are put here. So Agent AI course is a wonderful course that we are providing next month, and we'll be covering everything in Agent AI and agents are the future. Trust me, one day in the future, you're going to think, Yash told that agents are the future. And I'll share it here. I'll share it here. Please share it with your friends and with your colleagues about Agent AI, and also share about the live. So thank you, Smriti, for this wonderful session. I would like to thank everybody for joining here with Smriti. And Weekly Wed is from Business School of AI by Sudha Jamthe for her students, for LinkedIn, Business School of AI, and Barcelona Tech School. Weekly Wed happens every Wednesday at 9 a.m. Pacific time. We invite speakers from all over the world, and we will catch you next Weekly Wed. Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was great being here.
Thank you.
Thank you, Yash. Thank you all. Thank you, Smrithi.
Thank you.
Thank you. That was so awesome.